Mindy. Welcome back to my channel. Today is the day that I tell you about the 4 books that I finished in the month of January. 4 books is a pretty small reading month for me, but I have canceled Scribd and anything else that costs money monthly. So I've been just reading books off my shelves and ebooks I've already bought, and I think 4 is really good. I am going to tell you about the books I read in order of how much I enjoyed them. The first book I want to talk about is Dystopia Utopia short stories from the dark fantasy line of books that Flame Tree Press puts out. I found this at the used bookstore a while back, and I was super excited because I've been wanting to check out these books, and they're so beautiful. Yeah. And it's filled with dystopian utopia stories, both classics and new stories from modern authors. And I had mixed feelings about this collection because I had a few stories that I did not like and a few stories that I really loved, and most of the stories were about 3 stars for me, so it evened out to about 3 stars for this book. I always have trouble thinking about how to explain or review a book of short stories. I will say that I could see trends and a style that I could see went through all of the classic stories, and there was a very different style, and I could see things connecting all the new stories. So it's kind of interesting. It's just kind of neat to take a look into the dystopia utopia genre and kind of pick out what that genre really has to offer, and that is what I really enjoyed about this book. There were a few stories of the classics that I guess I am not quite smart enough to understand. I couldn't quite keep up. I don't know, I have that trouble with classics sometimes where the language is too different from how we speak now for me to follow. That's not with every classic. A lot of my favorite books in the whole world are classics, but some are written more approachable than others, in my opinion. So there were a few of the stories in here that I wasn't really getting a whole lot out of. But my very favorite story in this book is also a classic, and that was Candide by Voltaire. And that was like this epic journey type story, and as a fan of fantasy, that's really up my alley. This guy went everywhere, and it was kind of looking at some of the problems in society today, and no matter where he went, there were things going wrong in certain ways, and kind of exploring society at the time, I think. And he also finds this utopia, perfect place where they had solved all these problems, and so that was a really good story. I really, really recommend that if you haven't yet, check out Candide by Voltaire. So, yay! That's the best thing that I got out of this reading experience. The next book I want to talk about is The Rising by Brian King. This is the first Brian King book that I've ever read. This is a zombie novel, but it wasn't like any other zombie novel that I've ever read, and I don't want to tell you why, or at least all the reasons why, because that's kind of the fun of finding out by reading. So the one thing that I will say is that everything that died turned into a zombie, including all kinds of animals. So that was bizarre and interesting and very scary, because at one point they're over by a zoo and those animals are getting loose. Oh boy. Zombie zoo animals. This book had a lot of interesting, kind of down on their luck characters that have survived in this world and are trying to make it through. Some of the characters include a preacher, a junkie prostitute, and this man Jim Thurman, who is determined to get to his son, who is in this big city, which everyone is telling him that it's not even worth trying because the zombies have taken over the highly populated areas so badly that it's not even worth trying to go there. And it's about all of the obstacles and challenges they meet on their way to find this boy's son. Next, I read one of the ebooks that I purchased recently, which is Voices in the Snow by Darcy Coates. And this was also the first Darcy Coates book that I have ever read, and I wanted to check her out. It's an apocalyptic book. So that's 2 apocalyptic books that I've read in January. And then dystopia stories. Wow, I'm seeing a pattern here. I recently did a review of Voices in the Snow. If you want to get more details about the story, you can watch that. I'll link it down below. But basically, this story was full of atmosphere, a huge, terrible snowstorm that doesn't seem quite natural, an old mansion, and a lot of scary, freaky things happening. And really, what more could you ask for? So, The Rising by Brian King and Voices in the Snow by Darcy Coates both got 4 stars from me, and I really enjoyed them. I do like me a good apocalypse story. And the last book, and my favorite book that I read in January, was The Assassin's Apprentice, which is book 1 in the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb. This is a fantasy novel that I gave 5 stars. And it's not too long, but it was very detailed in its world building and its character development. And it follows this young boy named Fitz, who is the bastard son of a prince. He gets sent from his mother's house to the kingdom to be taken care of there, and they set him to learning skills around the kingdom. He starts apprenticing with someone to learn how to be an assassin, and also he's put into a class to learn the skill, which is kind of power, like using, it's kind of like a supernatural brain power type thing. He goes on missions for the king, and he's doing lots of dangerous tasks and unusual things, and I absolutely love this book. I gave it 5 stars, like I said, and I can't wait to read more in this series. So those are the 4 books that I finished in January. Have you read any of these books, and what did you think of them? If you like this video, you can hit like and subscribe, and I'll be back very soon with another book-related video. Thanks. Bye.